I still remember the scent of antiseptic and stale hope that hung in the air of the Sterling's immaculate mansion. A smell that clung to me like a shroud for months after I escaped. But it wasn't just the smell that haunted me. It was the chilling precision with which Mr. Sterling would align his silverware. The way Mrs. Sterling's perfectly manicured hand would tap a slow, deliberate rhythm on the dining table. Each tap a hammer blow to my already fractured spirit. They weren't just strict. They were architects of despair, sculpting children into empty vessels through a regimen of psychological torture disguised as discipline. My predecessor in that pristine, silent room, a girl named Maya, left behind a single, scrawled note hidden inside a ripped mattress. They take your breath away, one silence at a time. Before I dive into the labyrinth of terror and cunning that was my life under the Sterlings, before I tell you how I systematically dismantled their empire of cruelty from the inside, I need you to ask yourself, if your very soul was on the line, if every waking moment was a calculated assault on your identity, would you play their twisted game for survival? Or would you ignite a fire that risked burning everything, including yourself, to the ground? Think about it, really think, and tell me in the comments below, because what I did next, what I chose, still makes me question if I was the hero or just another survivor. Let me take you back, way back, to the chaotic tapestry of my early life. I was a child of the system, not by choice, but by circumstance. My biological mother, God rest her soul, was a hurricane of love and neglect. Our home was a symphony of arguments, laughter, and the perpetual scent of burnt toast. We had no rules, only instincts. When she died, I was flung into the bureaucratic abyss of foster care. I bounced from one temporary placement to another, each one more soul-crushing than the last. I was labeled difficult, unruly, a behavioral challenge. In truth, I was just loud, unpolished, and unable to fit into the neat little boxes adults wanted to put me in. My voice was too big, my emotions too raw, my need for genuine connection too inconvenient. So when my caseworker, a weary woman named Miss Henderson, told me about the Sterlings, her eyes held a spark of desperate hope. They're highly structured, Ethan, she'd said, a firm hand, but they offer stability. A real chance. Stability. That word, after years of instability, tasted like salvation. I pictured a warm bed, regular meals, maybe even a school where I could finally just learn without constant disruption. I was 15, and I was desperate to believe in a fairy tale. The Sterlings' mansion wasn't just big, it was a fortress. High walls, wrought iron gates, and a surveillance camera blinking at every approach. The moment I stepped out of Miss Henderson's aging Honda, Mrs. Sterling, a woman sculpted from ice and silk, extended a hand that felt colder than granite. "Welcome, Ethan," she'd said, her voice a low, even hum, devoid of any genuine warmth. "We have a strict routine here. Compliance is key." Miss Henderson, bless her naive heart, beamed, probably thinking she'd finally found me a good placement. I just felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. My first welcome home was a 90-minute orientation to the Sterling household protocol. Every single aspect of life was governed by a meticulously detailed, laminated manual. Wake-up times, meal times, hygiene standards down to the millimeter, even designated contemplation periods in utter silence. There was a points system displayed prominently on the fridge, an Orwellian ledger of virtue points for obedience and deficiency debits for any deviation. A misplaced toothbrush was -5 points. An unapproved utterance? -10. Hitting -20 meant a night in the reflection chamber. A euphemism I would soon learn to dread. My room was stark. A single bed, a small desk, a chair. No posters, no personal effects, not even a single book. The walls were painted a sterile white, and the window overlooked a perfectly manicured garden that felt less like nature and more like a carefully controlled exhibit. The first week was a blur of rules, silent meals, and the constant, crushing weight of their surveillance. Every movement felt scrutinized, every thought felt exposed. Mr. Sterling, a man whose spine was as rigid as a steel beam and whose eyes held the cold, calculating glint of a predator, would corner me with questions that weren't questions at all. "Why did you finish your peas before your carrots, Ethan? Are you attempting to assert an unauthorized preference?" He'd ask, his voice low and unwavering. and I'd feel my stomach clench, my mind racing to find the correct answer, the one that wouldn't incur more deficiency debits. I really tried, to be the good boy they wanted. I made my bed with hospital corners that could bounce a coin. I ate my food with excruciating slowness, ensuring every morsel was consumed in the prescribed order. But it was never enough. My attempts at conformity were met with ever-increasing demands for perfection. They didn't want obedience. They wanted eradication of self. They wanted me to disappear, to become an extension of their sterile, controlled existence. The turning point, the moment my fear solidified into cold, hard resolve, came after 3 grueling weeks. I was assigned to clean the archives, a dusty, forgotten room in the basement that smelled faintly of old paper and something metallic, something like regret. The Sterlings rarely went down there, considering it a minor, uncivilized corner of their otherwise pristine home. As I was wiping down a bookshelf, a loose panel caught my eye. Curiosity, that persistent, dangerous spark that they hadn't quite extinguished yet, compelled me to pry it open. Inside, nestled amidst a pile of yellowed documents, was a small, worn wooden box. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were 5 carefully organized files, each labeled with a name and a photo. These were the files of the previous foster children who had lived here. As I looked at their initial photos, bright, hopeful faces, my heart ached. Then I saw the subsequent photos in each file. The smiles faded, replaced by vacant stares. Their bodies seemed to shrink, their eyes hollowed out, dark circles painting a grim testament to their time here. The final entry in each file was eerily similar. Disposition: unresponsive to re-education. Relocated to specialized facility. But there was no address, no contact information, just a cold, clinical dismissal. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just strict foster care. This was a black hole. And then at the bottom of the box I found it, a small, outdated digital camera. It felt heavy in my hand, imbued with the desperate secrets of those who came before me. I flicked it on, and the small screen glowed to life, displaying a series of video clips. The first one showed a terrified-looking boy, no older than 10, forced to stand in a corner for what looked like hours, while Mr. Sterling droned on about unacceptable noise pollution. Another clip showed a young girl, Maya, the one from the diary, scrubbing the marble floors with a toothbrush, her hands raw and bleeding, while Mrs. Sterling, with a chilling smile, lectured her on the purification of transgression. My stomach churned, a bitter bile rising in my throat. This wasn't discipline. This was systematic abuse, psychological warfare designed to break a child's will. They weren't just adopting kids. They were collecting specimens, breaking them, and then discarding them. And I was next. Just as the horrific realization dawned on me, I heard the faint creak of the basement door opening upstairs. Panic seized me. I stuffed the camera and one of Maya's diaries into my oversized, government-issued uniform pants, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I dove behind a stack of dusty antique furniture, holding my breath as Mr. Sterling's heavy footsteps descended the stairs. He walked around, humming a tuneless, morbid melody, his eyes sweeping the room with an unsettling slowness. I thought he saw me. I actually started preparing myself for the inevitable punishment, the reflection chamber, the interrogations. But then, to my profound relief, he turned, locked the basement door, and ascended, leaving me alone in the suffocating darkness, with the weight of unspeakable secrets pressed against my skin. So here I was, a 15-year-old kid with a history of being labeled problematic, trapped in a gilded cage with 2 monsters who were systematically destroying children. And I now held undeniable proof of their crimes. I was staring into the abyss, knowing that if I made a single wrong move, I would vanish just like Maya and the others. The camera was my salvation, but it was also my death warrant if discovered. I had to choose. Do I try to escape immediately, risk being caught and never believed, or do I stay, play the perfect victim, and gather enough evidence to ensure these psychopaths never hurt another child again? Before I tell you about the terrifying tightrope walk I performed, the elaborate game of psychological chess I played with these masters of manipulation, and the absolutely explosive climax that brought their empire crashing down, I need you to pause. The final confrontation began subtly, a slow burn that escalated into an inferno. Mr. Sterling announced my final virtue evaluation. A 3-day isolation period in the reflection chamber, without food or light, designed to complete my spiritual purification. This was it. This was where they truly broke the others. I couldn't allow it. The night before, I slipped into Mr. Sterling's study. I knew he kept his main computer unlocked for a short window after his nightly data review. My heart was a drum against my ribs as I navigated his files, searching for anything on their network. And there it was, a list of names, addresses, and encrypted communications detailing their illicit dealings with troubled teen facilities and re-education camps across the country. These weren't just foster parents. They were a hub in a horrific, underground system of child trafficking and abuse. I copied everything onto a small USB stick I'd found in Maya's box and then, with trembling fingers, initiated a total system wipe on his computer. I wanted to leave no trace but leave a message. On his desktop, I left a single stark image, Maya's last hollow-eyed photograph. The next morning, Mr. Sterling's bellow ripped through the house like a cannon shot. He burst into my room, his face a mask of primal fury, his perfectly coiffed hair disheveled, his eyes blazing with a terrifying, unhinged madness. You did this, didn't you, boy? He roared, grabbing me by the arm, his grip like steel clamps. You think you can defy me? Mrs. Sterling appeared behind him, her usual composure fractured, a chillingly primal snarl on her face. This wasn't the calm, calculated abuse anymore. This was raw, animalistic rage. He knows everything, she hissed, her eyes darting frantically. He's seen the files. It was then that I knew my life was truly in danger. They would make me disappear permanently. I had planned for this. As Mr. Sterling dragged me towards the dreaded reflection chamber, I pulled out the burner phone. "Hello, world," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough to be heard. "This is Ethan. And I'm currently being held against my will by the Sterlings, who run an illegal child trafficking ring." I hit go live on a hidden streaming app I'd preloaded, simultaneously hitting send on an email containing all the evidence to Ms. Henderson, the police, and a few major news outlets. Mr. Sterling froze, his eyes widening in disbelief and then pure terror as he saw the phone, saw the live stream blinking, thousands of viewers already tuning in. "What have you done?" he shrieked, letting go of me and lunging for the phone. I dodged him, sprinting through the pristine halls, my voice narrating everything I saw, everything I knew. "This is where they keep the children captive," I gasped, pointing the camera at the basement door. "This is their torture chamber." The live stream was chaotic, thousands of comments flooding in, disbelieving, horrified, demanding help. He tackled me in the living room, wrestling for the phone, his face contorted with murderous intent. Mrs. Sterling, equally unhinged, was trying to shut down the Wi-Fi. But it was too late. The police, alerted by Ms. Henderson and the torrent of 911 calls flooding in from concerned viewers, descended upon the mansion. They burst through the front door, sirens wailing, just as Mr. Sterling had me pinned, his hands around my throat, the burner phone still streaming, capturing his final, desperate act of violence. The aftermath was a media firestorm that ripped through the nation. The Sterlings, exposed live on camera and with an overwhelming mountain of digital evidence, were arrested on multiple counts of child endangerment, abuse, trafficking, and conspiracy. The news cycle was dominated by my story, by Maya's story, and by the stories of the 5 other children who were located in various horrific facilities across the country, all thanks to the evidence I managed to collect. It was a long road to recovery for all of us, but we were free. I finally got to meet Maya face to face, not in a silent house of horrors, but in a bright sunlit room. We just hugged for a long time, the unspoken understanding between us thicker than any words. I'm living in a new foster home now, a real home, with real parents who let me laugh, let me cry, and let me be wonderfully, imperfectly, authentically myself. They don't care if my socks don't match, or if I leave a few crumbs on the counter. They just care that I'm healing. The Sterlings are serving life sentences, their meticulously controlled lives now reduced to a prison cell. A cage far more fitting for their twisted souls. The biggest lesson I learned? That true strength isn't found in unbreakable rules or rigid control. It's found in the defiant, unbreakable spirit of a single human being who refuses to be silenced. If you were on my side, if you cheered for my escape and for the justice that was served, then please smash that like button. Subscribe for more true stories of resilience, and help me shine a light on the darkness. Share your most intense thoughts, your outrage, your relief, anything, in the comments below. I'll be there, reading every single one. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you all in the next one.